Mitchell Show. I'm your host, Coach Matthew Mitchell. So happy that you have joined us once again. We come to you each and every Wednesday with leadership content that will move your life forward. Coach Matthew Mitchell Show is brought to you by CoachMatthewMitchell.com. Go to CoachMatthewMitchell.com and you will find a ton of free resources that can help your leadership, help you move forward in your personal growth, help you start to unlock some of the mysteries that are surrounding your productivity right now. And so we are here to help you with that, teaching you the winning tools, honesty, hard work, and discipline. And you can find out how you can engage our content at CoachMatthewMitchell.com. You also can buy my latest book, Ready to Win: How Great Leaders Succeed Through Preparation. And that is sold online wherever you can purchase your books. Ready to Win is a fantastic USA Today bestseller. So thank you if you've already bought your copy. And I'm looking forward to you reading the book if you have not gotten your copy. So that's how we bring you the show each and every week. This week we are in part 3 of our ongoing series where we are helping you navigate risk, and our series, Risk and Reward, Mastering Challenges in Leadership. And we are talking about how risk shows up in our leadership journey, and specifically how emotional risks show up. And they show up as the presence of uncertainty in our leadership, anything that has a potential negative outcome, exposure to harm or loss in our leadership. At times in our leadership, we struggle with dealing with risk. So in this series, we have been helping you identify when you feel you are in a situation of risk in your leadership and you are in that emotional state that has you really blocked from taking action. And so the way we're walking you through this is through an acronym of risk, R-I-S-K. And last week we helped you. And so R is recognize the opportunity. I, identify consequences. S, strategize responsibly. K, keep grounded. Last week was recognizing the opportunity, and we gave you some tactics on how you can do that when you start to feel like you're being blocked by risk and you are choosing to delay taking action instead of diving in and taking action. And so if you fail to take action because you feel the overwhelming power of the risk seems too powerful for you to engage, we're teaching you how to navigate that in your leadership through that acronym RISK. So last week, recognize opportunity. This week, identify consequences, and we're going to give you some tactics on how to make a shift in your thinking, which will allow you to make some choices where you can face the challenge that's in front of you and move through it and learn and grow. And so let's get into this week's content. I, in the RISK acronym, identify consequences. What is a consequence? And why do we need to identify the consequences? Because this is a very, very important lesson that I learned just in the last few years as I've been working on my leadership and advancing and growing and learning how to lead more effectively. So we need to identify consequences, because what I want to tell you this week is the way we have thought about consequences has really, really been from a negative viewpoint. And I want to help you this week shift to thinking about consequences in the positive. All right. So a consequence is simply this. It's a result or effect of an action we take. That's what a consequence is. A result or effect of an action taken. Let me ask you this question. When you hear the word consequence, do you feel immediately positive, or do you feel negative, or do you feel neutral? That would be very interesting. You people that feel neutral to that, I really want you to comment. I want you to type that in the comments on our YouTube channel. But here's what I feel when I hear the word, there's going to be consequences. I am feeling like there's going to be something severe coming my way, something difficult coming my way, something negative, when I hear there will be consequences. And the reason that happens is that over and over in my life, when I was being taught how to approach actions in my life, and people were teaching me what they wanted me to do and what they didn't want me to do, when the word consequence came up, they were talking about the consequences of poor choices. All right? That is just the way consequences have been laid out to me over life. So, examples. Back in Louisville, Mississippi, youngest of 4 boys, it was a hectic household. John and Carol Mitchell, my wonderful parents, doing the best they could in rural Mississippi to try to keep the ship afloat. Not a lot of financial resources, a lot of love, a lot of care, a lot of concern, but not a lot of financial resources. So some real pressure around that. And they also had a lot of pressure that they were trying to meet some expectation they had of how life should look. And that was all informed on how they had been raised and the challenges they had faced. And so they had both had some difficulties in their upbringing. And so their response to that was they were going to try to create the perfect home. They were going to put 3 meals, home cooked meals on the table a day. They just worked tirelessly. They kept us fed, they kept us clothed, they kept us, strong and healthy and able to attend school and able to play sports and these different things that they were doing, but they also were trying to teach us how to live life. And so a lot of what they were teaching us is what not to do. And as we were mischievous boys and into stuff all the time, as kids will do that, there were a lot of things that would go wrong. And so what Dad would do, and Dad and Mom really shared a lot of the discipline, but Dad was very forceful, and he would say there's going to be some consequences. If these things don't happen, if you don't make your bed, if you don't clean up after yourself, if you don't mow the grass, if you don't rake the leaves, if you don't clean out the garage, there's going to be consequences, and the consequences were going to be some type of punishment. And so whether you're going to be sent to your room or you're going to be grounded or whatever the consequence was, it was going to be, if you don't do the right thing, then you're going to suffer the consequences. How many times have you heard in your life about how you will suffer the consequences of your actions? It's just ingrained, at least in my background and so many examples that I've seen not only in my family but in other people's experiences. That term has been said over and over. You will suffer the consequences if you don't get a good grade. You will suffer the consequences in athletics if you don't get in shape. I can tell you in my own coaching journey as a college basketball coach, there have been so many times where I would be in front of the team and I would tell them, we need to do X because if we do Y, we're going to suffer consequences. We're going to suffer the pain of a loss. We're going to suffer the pain of not being in shape. We're going to suffer consequences. I've said it so many times when I was trying to get our team prepared to do great work. And so what I want to do, what I would suggest to you is that is a mindset. Suffering consequences is a mindset that's rooted in fear. So the people who were telling us that, or if we were telling ourselves that, we were trying to avoid the punishment of consequences, whatever that may be. If you don't balance your bank account, you're going to suffer the consequences of being in debt, or you're going to suffer the consequences of overdrawing, or whatever the negative outcome, the consequences rooted in the negative. And when we think about avoiding emotional risks in our leadership, and we think about why do we try to avoid these risks that it takes for us to make progress or to produce in our professional lives or even in our personal lives, where does risk slow us down the most? It is because our thinking is rooted in fear. We are afraid to suffer the punishment or the negative outcome of our actions. And so what I want to do this week is I want to shift our thinking around consequences. And so instead of thinking about the results of poor choices, which are rooted in fear, I want us to shift and start identifying the consequences or the results, because a consequence is a result or effect of an action taken. I want us to shift from the mindset of poor choices rooted in fear. I want to shift to our mindset around results from profitable choices, which is rooted in belief. And we can train our brains to believe in our ability instead of the limiting belief of fear that we're not enough and we're not good enough. And so we've talked about this many times on the podcast. You need three things to aspire for something meaningful. You need talent, you need skill, you need energy. And so many of us, talent is natural and is God-given, and it is just what we possess, and we all possess different types of talent. But whatever field we're in, we need to have enough talent to compete and to succeed and to do well. And so I have to recognize my talent, and I have to find a way to deploy that in an area, in my giftedness, in my chosen area of production, where I can move forward. Your skill and your competency is something that you earn and that you can continue to grow in all of your professional career, all of your personal life. This week, I'm helping you advance in your competency to handle emotional risk. You're taking time to learn how to navigate this in your leadership life and in your personal life, and wherever emotional risk is slowing you down, you're learning, you're increasing your skill. We can go find more competency. We can go earn more skill through time. And then your energy, you absolutely can impact as well. And so when we think about those three areas, where I want you to look back on in your life, where you can find, you may say, Coach, I don't know why you would tell me to believe in myself. I've not accomplished what I want to accomplish. My career is not where I want it to be. I'm not advancing at the rate that I want to advance. All of these negative things that you can tell yourself. I'm telling you there's a way that you can believe in yourself, and it's looking back on it through your talent, through your skill, through your energy. You have achieved something in your life, no matter where you are right now. If you will look back, instead of looking about in the areas where you're lacking, if you'll look back on your track record, you have done enough to be where you are right now. And you just didn't end up there. At this stage of my career, 30 years into a coaching career, I didn't just end up where I am. No matter if I have aspirations to go to a higher level and to accomplish more and to get to a different stage of success than where I currently am, if I'm measuring where I am to where I want to go, there's all sorts of opportunity for you to think negatively about where you are. But what I'm suggesting today, to earn the ability to identify consequences from a profitable mindset instead of identifying consequences from a fear-based mindset, you can look back on your track record, and I promise you, you will find enough accomplishment to be able to make this shift. And you will find enough action that you've taken in your accomplishments, no matter where you are and no matter how much further you feel like you have to go, this you are capable of doing if you will look back on your track record. And so to impact our progress, our production, our professionalism, our ability to navigate our personal life, I want you to shift your mindset on identifying consequences from the results of making profitable choices and believing in yourself. So there's three things I want to teach you about profitable choices that will result in self-belief. And if you will embrace these three choices, you will identify the consequences from a profitable mindset instead of a fear-based mindset. So the three questions I want you to ask yourself: what will the result of responsibility in my life look like? What will the result of dependability, if I become extremely dependable, what will those consequences be in my life? And third question, what will the result of consistency be in my life, in my leadership, in my profession, in my production? So let's break those three questions down and let's ask them of ourselves, and let's think about how profitable this mindset can be in helping us identify the consequences when we get into the situation of risk that's slowing us down, that is delaying our advancement, that's forcing us to avoid difficult conversations, that makes us detach from reality so we just don't have to deal with the risk. I want you to remember this part of the acronym. I identify these consequences from a profitable mindset. So number one, what is the result of responsibility? So when you start to think about where can you show up, where can your responsibility show up in your life? For yourself, for your family, for your friends, for your team at work, what would the consequence be of you becoming extremely responsible in your activities in life? What would that consequence be? And so what is responsibility? Where does responsibility show up? And so I would ask this question. I broke this down for our team at Kentucky, and we'll absolutely use this as we go forward in this new opportunity that I have leading the program at the University of Houston. But in the choices that we make as performers, as employees, as employers, as followers, as leaders, the choices that we make around responsibility, I would always ask this question of the players. In responsibility, do you have your plan ready for the day? And so when we engage in planning and we have our days planned out, we have our weeks planned out, we have our months, our years, if we will take the time to plan and to prepare. The subject of my latest book, Ready to Win, is all about preparation. When we engage in this activity, we are taking responsibility for our actions. When we take responsibility for our actions, we are putting it on us to perform. So a responsible, being prepared, showing up with a positive attitude, showing up prepared with the material you need for whatever the project is, showing up with an open mind, showing up with an attitude of teamwork. All of these things are when you're taking responsibility for your actions. And so this is the question I want you to ask in your life. What will the result be? What will the consequence be of my commitment to being responsible for my actions? So what is the consequence of responsibility in your life? Question number one. Question number two, what is the result of dependability? What is the consequence? Remember, a consequence is simply a result or effect of an action. Is there anything negative in that definition? It's just so cut and dried, so plain. There's no fear. It's just consequence is merely just the result of our action. And so when we've heard this over, you will suffer the consequences. That's negative. That's not the definition. A consequence does not have to be negative. It does not have to be rooted in the negative. It can be rooted in profit. It can be rooted in belief. It's just simply the result of your action. So how do we impact our actions? This is what we are discussing right now. So what will the consequence of you being super dependable in your life? I can tell you, you are going to create so much trust with the people in your life. They are going to know they can count on you and your actions when you build dependability. So we teach this in the Winning Tools. People will only trust you as much as they can depend on you. That is where you build tremendous trust with yourself first. So just be dependable. And how can I do that? By forming some anchoring and fundamental habits in your life. And when you pay attention to the areas in your life, when you pay attention to your spirit, when you pay attention to your emotions, when you pay attention to your professional competencies, when you pay attention to your physical health and your energy, and when you take some time and pay attention to enjoying life and having some fun, those 5 areas, if you'll pay attention and you'll invest in those 5 areas in your life, you will be able to depend on yourself, and then you will become dependable to others. And the consequence of your dependability will be extremely positive. You will be trusted, and you will be a person that can be counted on. And think about what the consequence of that would be. You will not be suffering anything. You will be profiting in your relationships, in your professional productivity, in your growth. You will profit. That will be a profitable choice you make when you invest in your dependability. And then the third thing, what is the result of consistency? I would ask the players, and we'll ask you, and we'll ask anyone in the future that I coach, have you worked your plan today? And when you go through the effort of making a plan and becoming dependable, the first 2 steps here, now can I consistently over time continue to work my responsibility, to work my dependability? What will the result of you doing that consistently? Will that be profitable? I want you to think about that. And my encouragement to you is absolutely consistency is the superpower in our actions, in our habits, in our thoughts. The consistency to do things responsibly, the consistency of being dependable. This is going to create tremendous discipline in your life. And I want you to think about, how will those choices profit you? And so when we think about identifying the consequences, when we get into this situation where we are delayed from taking action, we are fearful of taking action because we have encountered an emotional risk, and our inner voice, our inner critic is telling us we can't do it, we shouldn't do it. It's trying to block us from taking action. And we work through this acronym of risk. The I part, identify consequences. I want you to shift from thinking about the results of poor choices that you're going to make and the consequences of fear-based thinking. And I want you to shift that to the consequences of profitable choices, which are going to result in your belief in yourself. And you can absolutely 100% increase that over time. Let's review very quickly to close it out today. What is a consequence? It's a result of an action taken. Simple as that. A consequence is not something that we have to fear. A consequence is not something we have to suffer because we've made poor choices. A consequence can be a result of profitable action taken, and a consequence can be rooted in your belief in yourself. And I am rooting for you. I am cheering for you to embrace this mindset this week as we face the temptation to avoid these emotional risks that we feel and that prevent us from making progress. These emotional risks prevent us from producing to the level we're capable. These emotional risks that we don't face prevent us from advancing in our profession. I want you to face these risks that we all are presented with in our leadership. And I want you to start processing them in a positive way. I know if you will commit to this mindset that we talked about this week, it's going to help you move forward. And that's what really gets me fired up in leadership, is to see you make progress. It just is the joy of my life. So if you want to find out more about what you can gain from engaging our content, go to coachmatthewmitchell.com. Follow us on social media, Coach Matthew Mitchell. If you're interested in what we're doing with the Houston Women's Basketball Program, the University of Houston Women's Basketball Program, you can go to uhcougars.com. That's our website there. And we are having a blast and making a lot of progress there. And we're using all of these winning tools, honesty, hard work, and discipline, all of these techniques that we're talking to you about each and every week, and all the things that you will find on the coachmatthewmitchell.com site for your business and for your growth. We're using all that in real time right now at this exciting new position at the University of Houston. So check us out. Go grab a book, Ready to Win, at anywhere you can buy that online. That's our USA Today bestseller that just came out last November, and people are giving us rave reviews there, saying that it's really bolstering their preparation and unlocking the power of preparation and how it can put you into a powerful position to win. So check that out, and know that next week we will continue in our series, Risk and Reward, Mastering Challenges in Leadership. We'll be back with the next installment. And until then, do the work, get it done this week, believe in yourself, and start benefiting from the consequences of profitable choices in your life. And I can't wait to see how that moves you forward. So have a great week. We'll see you next week back here on the Coach Matthew Mitchell Show. So long, everybody.